Judge, thanks very much. I realized that I'm in Kentucky and that judge has a slightly different connotation in your state than in mine. But I have very rarely, as a practicing lawyer, ever had that kind of introduction from a judge, so I'm thrilled to have it. And I am thrilled to be here today. I really have to acknowledge a few people and apologize for this, but it's just really important. I want to acknowledge someone that I have a lot of gratitude towards, and that's Paul Patton. Paul was governor when I became governor of Iowa, and he was one of our mentoring governors. I learned a lot from Governor Patton, and it's really great to see him here today. I want to tell you, that how extraordinarily impressed I am with Governor Beshear. He really does understand this job of being governor. He knows how important it is to focus on areas that need help. He appreciates the job of a governor is to be an economic developer in chief. He recognizes the extraordinarily important role that education is going to play for kids here in Kentucky, and he's been a champion for education at every level. And he also understands and appreciates how important it is to have security and knowing that your families will have access to health care coverage if they need it. He has been not just a leader here in this great state, but I can tell you he has a well-deserved national reputation as one of the finest governors in the country. So, Governor, it's great to be here. And finally, I'd like to echo the comments of the governor about Chairman Rogers. And I want the chairman to know I'm not just saying this because he's the appropriations chair. Nor am I saying it because he's on the Ag Appropriations Subcommittee. Washington needed leadership. Congress needed leadership. And Chairman Rogers and Senator Mikulski decided that they, by force of personality, by force of will, would get their colleagues to do something that they hadn't done and that the nation needed them to do in providing certainty and direction and prioritization of the resources of the federal government. I can't tell you how enormous that job was. I can't tell you how well those two individuals did it. And they provided an example to every single one of us in Washington, D.C. of the way the system is supposed to work. And for that, Mr. Chairman, I am very grateful personally, and we are all grateful. Governor Patton asked me if I have ever been to Kentucky, and I have been here as Secretary of Agriculture, but I advised him that my first family vacation as a young lawyer with a young infant was to Kentucky. Christy and I decided to drive down here and spend some time in your great state, just traveling around and seeing all aspects of your great state. The only lapse in judgment, I think, was taking our one-year-old to one of the distilleries down here. And I can tell you also how shocked I was to find out that Churchill Downs was in the middle of a city. That was somewhat shocking to me. But we were extraordinarily impressed with the beauty of this state. Anyone who travels here, anyone who drives through this great state, cannot help but be overwhelmed by the beauty of the landscape. And that landscape has enormous potential. And part of the challenge of rural America is that for far too long, we have been focused and dominated by perhaps one aspect of the rural economy. In my home state, it was agriculture. Here it may very well have been agriculture, or it could have been mining. And as things change, the challenge is for us to figure out how to overlay an economy that can complement the mainstay of the economy. And unfortunately, for far too long, we have not done that in rural America. We've not understood as a country the significant contribution that rural America makes to every single American. It's not just where most of the food that our country produces comes from. And least you think that's no big deal, understand that we are a food secure nation, which means that we have the capacity and the capability of producing everything we need to feed our people. Very few countries in the world are that independent in terms of their food source. But rural America provides so much more. Nearly half of America depends on its water for what takes place in private working lands and forested areas in rural areas. And every single time we turn on the lights or adjust the thermostat, we ought to realize that whatever the source of that energy was, whether it's coal or natural gas or oil or biomass, it most likely came from a rural area. So it provides most of our energy and power. It disproportionately sends sons and daughters to the military. Rural America is 15% of America's population, but 40% of our military come from those small towns, those farms, those ranches. And it is the place that, because of the great work of those who produce our food and produce our energy have done, that the rest of us have these enormous options to do a lot of other things. That we don't have to be, as our ancestors were, limited to being in a physical location where we would only have one responsibility, which was to produce enough food or enough coal or whatever it might be to take care of our family. So this is an enormously important place. And it faces challenges, and certainly Eastern Kentucky faces those challenges in much the same way that most of rural America faces. And those challenges reflect themselves in a differential between incomes, between what folks make here and what folks can make in a city or suburb. It's about $6,500 difference in the median income between wage earners and salary workers between city and suburban rural areas. That helps to create, unfortunately, a more extensive poverty challenge for rural areas. Our poverty rate is the highest it's been in 25 years in rural America. And of course, that results in young people taking a look at their options and making decisions not to stay, but to leave, even though they would love to be able to stay. So for the first time in our history, we are losing people in rural America. A net loss of 44,000 folks. So it is extraordinarily important that we, and I mean the collective we, the local leadership, the state leadership, the federal leadership, the private sector, the nonprofit sector, understand that this is an important place in America, an important place for Kentucky, and that we need to spend some time and some energy and some resources on making it better, on creating opportunities, on developing a complementary economy. So at USDA, we're focused on production agriculture and exports, critically important. Kentucky's doing a great job in that area. We're developing investments in local and regional food systems to create opportunities for entrepreneurial small producers. We're focused on expanding conservation and linking it to outdoor recreation, because there are a lot of hunting and fishing opportunities. I spent 5 seconds looking out the window here at the state park, and what I saw was a tremendous tourism opportunity. There's got to be a lot to do in those woods that can attract people from all over the country. And the bio-based economy, the ability to take what we grow and what we raise and produce a wide array of new products. Those trees out there and the woody biomass they can create are today developing through nanotechnology, a wood vest similar to Kevlar, which the military uses and the police forces around the country use. This wood vest is stronger and more protective and lighter than Kevlar. It's a new bio-based opportunity where bioprocessing facilities will be located in rural areas, taking advantage of the biomass that can be created from our farm fields and from our forested areas. It's an amazing new opportunity. But to take full advantage of that opportunity, we really have to have focused attention on these critically important areas. And that's why we created at USDA a thing called Strike Force. It started in 3 southern states, and its focus is on the areas of persistent poverty. And the decision was made that we needed to break down the silos that existed at USDA. We have a farm service agency that does conservation and credit to producers. We have a rural development agency which, as has been indicated, does a lot more than most people realize. Just so you understand the reach of this already in the state of Kentucky, the Rural Development Office has helped to finance over 20,000 homes in rural America since I've been secretary. They've invested $231 million in 50 industries located in rural Kentucky. They've funded 276 renewable energy and energy efficiency projects. 357 community facilities have been helped financed through USDA. 37 telephone and broadband projects. 333 electric transmission and distribution line projects. 26 water treatment and sewer treatment projects. Total, 1,582 projects, plus the 20,000 houses just from USDA, just in Kentucky, over $4 billion of investment. I'll bet you not anybody, with the exception of the chairman, and maybe the governor, because I just told him in the car, knew that. But that's the reach of rural development. And you add that to FSA's capacity to do credit and more conservation, and NRCS's efforts to do conservation and tying it into outdoor recreation, and our nutrition assistance programs that can provide access for struggling families. You combine all of that opportunity, you break the silos down, and you direct those agencies and mission areas to focus intense time and energy with local partners in specific geographic areas. They can move the dial. And that's one department of government. So we created Strike Force for the express purpose of saying to our state folks, break the silos down within the state, work collaboratively with local leadership, and figure out from local leadership precisely what their priorities are, focus on regional efforts, and try to invest these resources that we have wisely, effectively, and efficiently to address these persistently poor areas and to create the kind of opportunity that rural Kentucky and rural America deserves. So we started in those 3 states. We have expanded this program prior to today to 16 states and several tribal areas. In the short period of time we have been engaged in Strike Force, we've partnered with over 400 local partners, to the governor's point about what you need. 400 local partners, including local economic development organizations, local government, universities, foundations. There are lots of partners that need to be involved. And those 400 partnerships have resulted in over 80,000 different projects. And about $9.7 billion has been invested just from USDA in those Strike Force states. Today, we want to extend our Strike Force effort, in large part because of the work that you all have done here in Kentucky with the SOAR project, the leadership of Chairman Rogers and Governor Beshear, and all of the local leadership that's represented here. It's a strong message that's sent when this many people are anxious and interested to participate. So we at USDA want to be your partner. So today we are extending our Strike Force initiative to 4 additional states: Tennessee, West Virginia, Louisiana, and the great state of Kentucky. What this will mean is that in, I think, 73 of the 120 counties in Kentucky, this Strike Force initiative will reach. to Chairman Rogers' point that Promise Zone's terrific 8 counties, but the reality is the need is much broader beyond 8 counties. So we've identified 73 counties where we're going to encourage our team at USDA. And it's not just the state team that will be engaged. We're committing in Strike Force to our regional and our national leadership teams to be engaged and involved with local partners, identifying priorities. Then the beauty of Strike Force, in my view, is not that we're from the federal government and we're here to help, of which you would be justifiably skeptical. It is identify your priorities. We will determine within our broad array of programs what might be helpful. And then we will partner with you and walk you essentially through the process to a successful conclusion. This is a situation, Mr. Chairman, where success is guaranteed. It's not iffy, it's not maybe, it's we're going to get you what you need from USDA. And then, given what we learn from this, we likely will identify, not just through the Promise Zone effort, which is across federal agencies, a number of other needs that you may very well have that will put us in a position to communicate to our sister agencies in the federal government the resources, the financial investments that you may need on other projects that we don't cover at USDA. So we are excited about this. We know it works. We know that in the Strike Force states before today's announcement, we have actually seen a significant increase in farm loans, especially to beginning farmers and socially disadvantaged farmers. We have seen a dramatic increase in conservation activity and investment. We've seen an increased investment in community facilities, and to give you a sense of what that may mean, that's everything from equipping a hospital with an EKG machine, to building a school, to financing a fire truck, to building a police station. The community facility program is very, very extensive. We've seen an increase as well in local and regional food system development, food hubs, the ability to aggregate locally produced food and then selling it to local school districts and local universities and colleges. President Patton, you're president of a college, aren't you? You ought to be buying what's grown here. $34 million. Okay, all right. I'm just making sure, just keep my eye on you. And we've seen an increase in home loans. In other words, we've seen increased investment in these areas because we are paying attention and we are listening to folks at the local level. So our commitment is to be here. Our commitment is to work. And it isn't just because it's the right thing to do, and it isn't just because this is an area of persistently poor and challenged families. That would be reason enough. But for me, it goes back to that importance of rural America. We've got to do a better job of understanding how lucky we are to have people who live, work, and raise their families in these rural communities as a country. We have to understand better the enormous contribution these families make, not just to their community, but to every family in America. We eat, we drink, we have access to power, we are protected, we are able to recreate, all because of what happens and what is being done by rural families and rural communities. That's why it's important to invest. That's why it's important to be able to have sons and daughters look at their moms and dads and their grandparents and have those grandparents and those parents be able to say, you don't necessarily have to leave. You can experience the American dream. You can contribute to your country. You can make a difference. And you can have a wonderful life in rural Kentucky and in rural America.